When I heard the frantic knocking on my door that rainy evening, I never expected it to change my life. My neighbor, Emily, stood there soaking wet, wrapped in a towel and shivering. Her voice trembled as she explained that her shower had suddenly stopped working midway, leaving her covered in soap and unable to fix anything herself. I had seen her around the building before, always polite but distant, the kind of woman who carried a quiet sadness in her eyes though she always smiled at everyone. Without hesitation, I grabbed my toolbox and followed her to her apartment, trying not to make her uncomfortable as she walked ahead with her towel gripping tightly around her shoulders. Inside, her place was warm but scattered, as if she lived fast and cleaned slow. The bathroom pipes were rolled, rusty, clearly neglected by the landlord for years. As I kneeled beside the shower and began examining the broken valve, Emily stood awkwardly nearby, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. I reassured her it was okay, that anyone would panic in her situation, and slowly she relaxed enough to laugh at herself. Little did I know that moment was the beginning of something neither of us had been expecting. The more I worked on the shower, the more I noticed how Emily hovered near me. Not in a nervous way but in a lonely one. She started talking to fill the silence, telling me about her long work hours, the noise in the building, the way she sometimes felt invisible even though she lived among dozens of people. I listened while tightening the pipe joints and replacing the clogged filter, surprised by how quickly she opened up. Most neighbors barely managed a hello, but here she was sharing parts of her life with a stranger holding a wrench. As the minutes passed, she stood a little closer, her voice softening as if she hadn't spoken freely to anyone in ages. She apologized twice for bothering me, but I told her she wasn't a bother at all. In truth, I found her company strangely peaceful. When I tried testing the water, a sudden burst of pressure splashed both of us, and she laughed a real laugh, warm and bright, the kind that made the tiny bathroom feel less cramped and more alive. For the first time since moving here, I felt like maybe I wasn't the only person in this building wishing for connection. Once the shower finally worked again, steaming hot water poured from the nozzle in a strong, perfect stream. Emily sighed with relief and thanked me repeatedly as if I had rescued her from a catastrophe instead of a plumbing problem. She insisted on making me tea as gratitude, so I stayed. Her kitchen was small, her hands still shaking slightly from the cold and the embarrassment earlier. As she made tea, she kept glancing at me with a mixture of gratitude and curiosity, as though she was trying to understand why I had helped so willingly. We sat at the tiny table by the window overlooking the rainy street, steam rising from our cups, and the silence between us felt easy, not heavy. She told me about the broken friendships in her past, about trying to rebuild her life after moving away from a painful relationship. I shared my own struggles and nothing dramatic, just the truth about living alone, working long hours, and feeling like the world moved too fast to keep up. For someone I barely knew, she listened with surprising closeness, as if my words mattered. The rain outside tapped lightly against the glass, creating a rhythm that made everything feel strangely intimate. As the evening deepened, I noticed Emily relax more, the tension slowly melting from her shoulders. She apologized again for showing up at my door in a towel, but I smiled and told her it made for a memorable introduction. That made her laugh so hard she had to cover her face. Her smile lit up the dim kitchen, and I realized she hadn't smiled much before tonight. She admitted she rarely asked anyone for help, that trusting people wasn't easy for her anymore. But something inside her told her she could trust me. Hearing that hit me deeper than I expected. A trust is something no one gives lightly. She started telling me small things about her apartment, her plants, her job, her fears about living alone. And as she spoke, I kept thinking how strange life was. A broken bar that a broken shower could bring two people together in a way normal conversations never could. When she noticed me lost in thought, she teasingly asked if I was bored. I shook my head immediately. If anything, I was seeing a side of her no one else had seen, and it made me want to protect the softness she usually hid. At one point she got quiet, looking out the window with a faraway expression. I gently asked what she was thinking about, and she hesitated before telling me she had been feeling alone for a long time. Not the kind of alone solved by noise or compania, but the kind that sits deep in the chest. The kind you don't tell anyone about because you're afraid they won't understand. She said she didn't want to feel that way anymore. I felt something tighten in my chest because her words sounded painfully familiar. I told her I understood, more than she realized. That seemed to surprise her, as if she thought she was the only one carrying invisible heaviness. She reached across the table, not quite touching my hand but hovering close, the gesture uncertain but sincere. For a moment, the rain outside faded and there was only the quiet warmth between us. She whispered that maybe tonight happened for a reason. I didn't argue. It certainly felt that way. Before I left, I checked the shower one last time to make sure everything was functioning perfectly. Emily followed behind me, standing close enough that I could feel her presence even without turning around. When I finished, she thanked me again, but this time her voice wavered slightly, like she wanted to say something more but wasn't sure how. I told her she could call me anytime here, not just for broken pipes but for anything she needed. She looked up at me with wide, vulnerable eyes, and for a moment, neither of us moved. She told me I made her feel safe, which was something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hearing that felt like being handed something fragile and precious. She walked me to the door, her footsteps soft behind mine, and when I stepped into the hallway, she hesitated before saying goodnight. It wasn't just a goodbye, it felt like the beginning of something neither of us wanted to end. The next morning, she knocked on my door again, and not frantic this time, but shy. She had made breakfast and wanted to share it with me if I wasn't too busy. I wasn't. Her smile when I said yes was brighter than anything I'd seen in weeks. We sat at her table again, the sun streaming through the curtains this time, making her hair glow softly. She asked about my day, my work, my interests, genuine questions, not polite ones. She listened like every detail mattered, and she told me more about herself too, about dreams she'd pushed aside, about how she wanted to feel alive again, not just exist. I realized then that helping her shower was the smallest part of what was happening. The real repair was something deeper, something happening to both of us. Over the next few days, we found ourselves spending more time together without planning it. If she cooked dinner, she invited me. If I went for groceries, I asked if she needed anything. Sometimes we talked for hours, other times we just sat quietly, comfortable in each other's presence. One evening, she confessed she had prayed for something to change in her life, that she had felt stuck and invisible for too long. And then, unexpectedly, I had shown up in her doorway with a toolbox. It felt strange to accept that I might be the answer to someone's quiet prayer, but the way she looked at me left no doubt she meant it. She told me she didn't want to go back to feeling alone. I told her she didn't have to. One night, as we sat on her couch watching the flicker of streetlights on the wall, she leaned her head on my shoulder. It was a small gesture, but it felt like the final barrier between us had fallen. She whispered that she felt safe with me, that I made her laugh, that she hadn't let anyone this close in years. I told her she made me feel seen in a way no one had in a long time. Her hand found mine slowly, almost nervously, and our fingers intertwined like it was the most natural thing in the world. The room was quiet, the world outside distant, and everything between us felt warm and real. She lifted her head and looked at me with a softness that made my heart pound. Nothing more needed to be said. Looking back, it's strange how everything changed because of a broken shower. One small problem, one unexpected moment, and two lonely lives collided in a way neither of us planned but both desperately needed. Emily isn't just my neighbor anymore. She's the person I look forward to seeing every morning, the one whose laughter fills the silence in my life, the one who made me realize how much a simple act of kindness can alter the course of everything. That night didn't just fix her shower, it opened a door in both our hearts. And as our story continues, I can't help but think that maybe some of the most beautiful things in life begin with accidents, rainstorms, and someone brave enough to knock on your door when everything falls apart.